Disabilities Issues and Updates on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Center for Independent Living, Abilities in Motion.
Good morning and welcome to Disabilities Issues and Updates. I am Teresa Faulkner, your host. We are so excited today about our show, which the topic is going to be advocacy. We're going to be dealing with two types. We're going to be dealing with self-advocacy, and we're also going to be dealing with systems advocacy. I'd like to introduce our guests. It's always good to have Elizabeth Setterly with us this morning, our ASL signer. We are so happy to have our executive director with us today, Stephanie Quigley. And we have a guest, Mark McNerney, who is a peer mentor here at Abilities in Motion in our TTF group, which our team taking flight. He's a peer mentor there. Before we get started with our advocacy topic, I'd like to remind our viewers about AIM's mission statement. And it reads, to help individuals with disabilities live their lives on their own terms, to eliminate the physiological stereotypes, physical barriers, and outdated attitudes that prevent social and civic inclusion, to campaign the laws and movements that work to ensure the rights and privileges of individuals with disabilities. As I stated, we're going to be dealing first with self-advocacy. And our expert today is going to be Mark. Mark, introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hello, my name is Mark, and I'm autistic.
So glad to have you on our program this morning. Mark,
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. In your own words, can you tell me what it means to be a self-advocate?
What self-advocacy means to me, being able to express myself in how I feel, what I want, and how and get my opinion out there and what I want to do in my way,
Mm-hmm.
and how I want my needs and wants and goals met.
Wonderful. So it's your way of living. You want to live an independent life and you want to be able to make your own decisions and decide about things. That's a good thing, isn't it?
Yes.
That is also a part of the growing up process, isn't it?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you are a mentor in our Teens Taking Flight program. Give us an example where you had to self-advocate for yourself within the group.
It took me a few meetings to be comfortable in Teens Taking Flight. When I was accepted by others, I also had to open myself up.
Mm-hmm.
I had to self-advocate myself when starting to look for a job. I had to speak up and ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
For the help the leaders help me out with the questions.
Mm-hmm.
For the job interview, the having the confidence, as well as having the ability to deal with negative people.
Okay. So I like the word that you used. You said help, but really too, it's a support. I think as we're all learning new things, we need support from one another. So those are there to help us to be better and to be able to self-advocate for ourselves. They're really our support, and we're thankful for them, aren't we?
Yes.
Can you give our viewers an example of when you self-advocated for yourself was difficult, that you were self-advocating and it was difficult for you?
I have a boss at work who is very difficult to deal with. she she think she believes that no one is really that like no one's doing their job when she's not right there watching them. I had to I had to advocate myself and let her know on the radio the fact that when I'm with a customer that that the customer is asking me for help and the customer has to come first. And I also had to that effect I'll be there as soon as I can when she's calling me.
Good, good. And so what it did for you was it caused you to be able to self-advocate, to be able to speak up for yourself about different things.
Yes.
And that definitely improved your confidence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. Can you give me 2 examples of how you have taught others to self-advocate for themselves?
I basically went down, told them how I went through life and gave my own personal experience. I had to tell them this is how I started out, this is how I went through the process, and this is how I ended up in this position.
Wonderful.
I had to basically say the fact that like how I got through all that process.
Mm-hmm. And were there some days it was harder than others?
Yes.
Were you encouraged and you had the support that you needed to move forward?
Yes, I was always supported at Abilities in Motion.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm sure not only Abilities in Motion, but your family, your parents supported you, enabled you to move forward.
Yes, and friends as well.
Oh, yes, wonderful, wonderful. Now go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
I also had difficulty with when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
I had to instead of them inviting me to do stuff at first, I was just sitting there watching, and later on, as we got to know each other better, they understood. Then I was invited out for more like time with them.
Oh, good. So you do special things with your friends?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we came up with this little game yesterday. I'm going to ask you a question about self-advocacy at home, and then you're going to give me a response. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So to be a self-advocate at home, what does that look like?
Where I wanted to go on vacation, where I wanted to go out to eat at restaurants, where I wanted to and what I wanted to eat while I got there. Also, activities I would like to get involved with, and what I would want to do.
Okay.
For like vacations and all that.
Wonderful. What about self-advocacy at work?
I had to ask for days off and like request and ask them how to like request the time off. I also had to ask for help if I needed it. Tell people that I have autism so they would understand.
Wonderful.
My behaviors.
What about at play?
The kids around my neighborhood didn't really include me. I had difficult time when I was younger. I used to just stand there watching, but as I got more into get involved with them, I got to like get out there and play with them. Well, and that started when I was in high school and like middle school. I got to join in on their fun a lot more.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now this is a big one. What about at the medical office, at the doctor's office?
I have to tell them that I have autism, and so they're aware of that I have like difficulty like communicating.
Mm-hmm.
And I also since I don't talk that much, they just ask me questions and like ask me how is this, how's that, like how is my health, how's my like my medicine been working.
Good, wonderful. We had a little inside joke, you and I. I understand when your family goes on vacation, that you have a certain type of food you enjoy more than others. So if I would
Yes.
invite you to a steakhouse, would you want to go with me?
I'm not sure. I'm not that much fond of steak. But I am really fond of seafood.
Wonderful. So I understand that when they make decisions about restaurants, you tell them, well, they don't have seafood there. I want to eat seafood. You're my
Yeah.
kind of guy. I like seafood too.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, listen, it was such a pleasure for you to be able to come on our show today and open up and share your self-advocacy experience. We're going to go now to our executive director, Stephanie Quigley, and she is going to be dealing with systems advocacy. Good morning, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being on our show. Introduce yourself and let's talk about system advocacy.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. Good morning. Thank you, Mark, for a great segment on your own self-advocacy. I think it's important for people to hear directly from people who experience it every day. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do at Abilities in Motion as far as systems advocacy. As you mentioned in the beginning, Teresa, we do focus on two kinds. Because it's important to always include our consumer base in everything that we do. And it wouldn't be advocacy if we didn't do that. So first and foremost, it's extremely important for individuals like Mark to share their stories so that others can learn and gain that kind of insight that it's so extremely important to advocate for oneself, because there's no better advocate than your own self. But as far as what we do at AIM, we tag team that self-advocacy with bigger issues, and we sort of categorize that as systems advocacy, meaning when there's a larger issue in society that people with disabilities face, it comes to us and rests on us to help remove barriers that people might be experiencing when it comes to accessing services or their own communities. And those are the types of systems advocacy that we work on as a Center for Independent Living. And I'll just explain a little bit about what a Center for Independent Living is for our viewers. A Center for Independent Living was really born out of the independent living movement in the 60s and 70s in California by the independent living pioneer Ed Roberts, where they started to identify during a tumultuous time in social justice and civil issues in our country, that people with disabilities were being overlooked and not allowed to have access to their own communities, to their schools, to their doctor's offices, to workplaces. So they started to form these centers where people could come and access resources and start learning and educate themselves about what tools are out there to help people with disabilities gain those same kinds of freedoms. So that's kind of how Centers for Independent Living were born. That's what Abilities in Motion is. We are first and foremost a Center for Independent Living, where any person with a disability of any ability can come and get resources, information, and referral. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't note that the IL movement was born in the 60s and 70s, yet we didn't have the Americans with Disabilities Act passed until 1990. And still it's 2022, and we still are seeing, issues with the ADA. It's there to build upon and support people with disabilities, yet we still see that people are not able to access their communities. And here's where our systems-wide advocacy comes in as an organization.
Right. One of the things, Stephanie, I thought about was prior to when the change began to happen with IL centers and so forth, it was very different. Many persons with disabilities were institutionalized or they were hidden away. So change has come, but the work is still not finished.
That's correct. And I think that's a common thread when we see any change in social movement or civil rights. It builds upon itself. And it's up to us as Centers for Independent Living to help hold those accountable for the changes that they presented through the ADA, but kind of just sit there. If it's not enforced, what good does it really do, right? So it's our job. I would love for there to be no need for Centers for Independent Living, but as long as there's an advocacy issue that people face, we're going to be here to try to help them navigate through. Some of the examples that I can give you are, as far as systems-wide advocacy, are things that as a whole, as a group, people are having issues changing or getting access to. And a big one right now is voting legislation. I think we all know that we've seen in the 2020 general election that people with disabilities came out in record numbers to vote in that election. And a lot of that is simply because of access. Pennsylvania was allowed to utilize absentee ballots, which was a huge benefit for people with disabilities that aren't able to access physically voting places. So now we're seeing those very same voting rights being challenged. And that's where our systems advocacy comes in, as far as, that's something that directly affects the community of people with disabilities, and is a right that every American has to vote. And why would we want to make it more difficult? So we work with legislators, we work with our community members to try to advocate to preserve those very types of laws and policies to protect people's voting rights. So it's those kind of larger scale things that we try to get involved in to fulfill our mission, like you read at the beginning, to eliminate barriers and stereotypes that affect people with disabilities.
So one of the main ways, when you were talking about the voting, it's really has a lot to do with the mail-in ballot. The whole being able to mail in your ballot. That's one of the issues that they're trying to make go away. Is that correct?
It is, and it's concerning, and it should be concerning to everyone, because why would we want to restrict voting? We want, this is, the land of the free and the home of the brave. We want people to vote. So it's extremely important, and it's a right that every American has. And I just can't understand why we want to make it more difficult for people, when we saw that allowing that type of voting for people with disabilities was a game changer. More people voted than ever because they could. In a perfect world, everyone would be able to physically get to the voting places and be able to cast their votes in person. But we just now saw municipalities instituting accessible balloting machines. So it wasn't possible. So mail-in balloting is a huge issue for us to preserve. And that's one of the biggest systems-wide advocacy measures that we're taking. Another one is, and at Abilities in Motion, we're doing this direct service with COVID-19 outreach and information, because we found that people with disabilities, there's a disparity there between folks with disabilities getting access to COVID information and the vaccines and testing in our communities. So that's another kind of dual individual and systems-wide advocacy effort that we're doing directly within our local community to try to get individuals involved, to educate them on how to access the information and the vaccines, but also raising awareness that, hey, once again, people with disabilities are being marginalized out of these kinds of things that mainstream individuals have much easier access to. So yeah, that's a good example, I think, of how both intersect and how Abilities in Motion can help drive that result and help try to get these individuals the information and access that they need.
Wonderful. I also think about how we at Abilities in Motion partnered with our local police department. I'm sure our viewers have seen the many issues and concerns concerning mental health and how persons are handled by law enforcement. Talk about that a little bit, Stephanie, because that was a wonderful partnership.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we over the summer we worked with our local Reading Police Department for a wonderful opportunity to provide some insight and education to the officers who are on the streets doing their jobs every day. And our role was to just give some information and allow an open dialogue about disability and offered a safe environment in which to do that with no judgment. But because our ultimate goal is to get the education to the first responders on autism and disability, and they had a lot of questions, which was great. And I think we ended up with a much better understanding of how a police interaction with a person with a disability could go bad, but with the right kind of information and knowledge could be a whole different, more positive outcome. And that's what everybody wants. And that's what the Reading Police Department expressed to us, which was really positive to hear that their jobs are to protect and serve, and that's exactly what they want to do. So it was great for us to be able to partner in that way, and we look forward to doing it again and becoming a regular part of that kind of yearly training that they do.
And I think it helped. I know it helped our community, and it helped us as individuals to be more sensitive, or to be more understanding, or to even be more educated when it comes to dealing with persons who have special needs, or they need to be talked to, or educated in a certain way. I believe that education is power, and I believe the more that we educate ourselves, the more that we can make the correct decisions for ourselves individually and then collectively. I just have one other question. Who can get involved with systems advocacy? Who can get involved?
Anybody. Anybody. It just takes the passion to want to do it. And what makes our organization unique is we really focus on advocacy, and we teach advocacy. And it's about providing the education and tools to individuals that want to help later with systems advocacy, right? So if you are looking for someone to quote unquote advocate for you because you don't want to do it, or you've given up, we're not the ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to instill advocacy in everybody else. We're not an organization that will take it and do it for you. We give you the tools and we teach you to advocate for yourself. Mark is a great example. He's done it at his job. He's done it with his friendships in his own community. And that's exactly what we want to see. You can come to us with questions and help. We'll give you what you need as far as tools, education, support, guidance to be able to get to that point where Mark is, where he can self-advocate on his own. He doesn't need someone else to do it for him. So I think that's important, and a very important distinction for people to understand when we're talking about advocacy as disability advocates. That's what we mean. The goal is to get everyone to be a self-advocate.
Wonderful.
But anybody can join the systems advocacy movement. We have allies, we have friends, families, anybody that wants to be involved with change and can join the movement at any time. Disability touches pretty much everybody at any point in your life. And we are here to answer the call. And people bring us issues all the time. Some of them are larger than others. Some of them are individual. And we always go back to that self-advocacy component. And those usually, Teresa, are our first questions. What have you already done?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'll tell you, every month when we do this show, when we get warmed up, it's time for the show to be over. But I think this is wonderful. This was a wonderful lesson that we taught and helped to educate persons about self-advocacy and systems advocacy. We want to continue. No one is too young or too old to be an advocate for the things that they feel that are very important. Our show is almost over. Mark, I want to give you one other chance. Do you have anything else you want to say to our audience before we go?
Thank you for watching, and thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen to our viewers. You can be a self advocate. You can be a part of systems advocacy. The thing is to get yourself educated, to get an understanding, and to move forward in your look of independence. I'll tell you this was a good show today. It was really, really good. Mark, you're a star.
Thank you.
If you have any questions or concerns, or if you'd like to know more about our programming, please give us a call. We'd love to hear from our viewers. You can reach me directly, Teresa Faulkner. My telephone number is 610-376-0010. My direct extension is 108. If you get my voicemail, leave me a message. I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. To Elizabeth, to Mark, to Stephanie, to myself, I'm proud to be a self-advocate, and I look forward to being more a part of system advocacy, whatever that might mean. Be safe out there, everyone. Goodbye.
Disabilities Issues and Updates on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Center for Independent Living, Abilities in Motion.